You're listening to the Intuitive Souls podcast. I am your host, Erica Russo, and this podcast is designed to educate, inspire, and enlighten. Let's wake up together. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Intuitive Souls podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I am really excited that the universe led you here. If you are an OG, you know I love you, and thank you for coming back, and thank you for listening, and thank you for taking all this information and all the information that the guests bring and bringing it into your life to just make yourself happier. To live a more fulfilled life. I appreciate every single one of you, every single download, and every single review. So with that being said, if this podcast is helping you, if it's inspiring you, if it's teaching you, I would really appreciate it if you can just head on over to iTunes real quick and write a review, because those reviews allow my podcast to be seen to more viewers, to more podcast listeners, and it helps me get this podcast to the ears that need to hear it. So thank you guys. With that being said, I want to talk a little bit about this week's episode. So if you already know, I am on TikTok and I love TikTok, and this platform is so amazing. It's so much better. I mean, this is my personal opinion, obviously, but it is so much better than Instagram or Facebook. I just feel like it brings me such joy and value and knowledge, and it helps me connect with like-minded people. And I think that's the best part of it, because I came across Suburban Witchery, which is our next guest, her TikTok, and when I tell you, I was like, wow, she is dropping knowledge bombs on her videos that I knew I had to get her on the podcast. Her name is Hana, and she is actually in Australia. So she has a wonderful accent, and I'm really excited that we were able to connect. And I brought her on because she is an expert in tarot and astrology. And as of February 17th, we are now in Mercury Retrograde until March 10th. Now, there are shadow periods, but we talk about that in the episode. And I really just kind of wanted to talk about Mercury Retrograde and what to expect, what not to do, what to do. And she just dumbs it down in such a great way. So I'm really thankful that she was able to come on the show. All of her information is in the show notes for you to check out. All of the information on the books that she spoke about is in the show notes as well. So be sure to check that out if that's something that you are interested in. So let's head on to the show, and I will talk to you guys next week. You guys, today I have an amazing guest I'm really super excited about, because we are going to touch on the notorious subject of Mercury Retrograde. I have Hana from Suburban Witchery. That's a tongue tie with me today. Thank you so much for coming on, and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Erica. So I am Hana the Suburban Witch, and I'm obviously a witch. I'm also a tarot reader and an astrologer based in Perth, Australia, but I do readings for people all over the world. So I'm also using my tarot and natal astrology to help people align their life with their soul's true essence. So I'm one of those really lucky people. I get to talk about and do all the things that I love and find interesting for a living. So I'm very, very blessed.
Yeah.
Also a mother and a wife. So my husband's a military man, so we do move around the country quite a bit, potentially the world later on. So moving with my own business is kind of good, because the distance readings just works. So I'm very, very lucky that it's all tied in perfectly.
Wow. So where exactly is Perth, Australia?
So Perth, fun fact, is the most isolated city in the entire world. We are very, very far away from everything.
Wow.
So we're on the west coast of Australia.
Okay.
So
And how long
I
have you
think,
been there?
only since August last year. And
Wow.
before that, we were in Melbourne, which is the complete opposite side of the
Yeah.
country. That's in southeastern Australia. And my husband he lived on base, so he was away from home most of the time. So at least here we've got him usually with us every night, which is lovely.
One of my good friends is actually a military spouse as well. So I definitely have all the respect for you because I know how hard it is, having your spouse away for so long. So good for you and running your own business. So
that keeps me sane.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Doesn't it, like, all this like stuff just keep you grounded and just, I love this stuff. So
Yeah.
2 words. It's really what we're here for. Mercury retrograde. So this has already started, guys. This started on February 17th and it's going to go through March 10th. And there are so many memes out there and then, all those funny memes that like blame it on retrograde. But I wanted to do this podcast episode to really tell you exactly the nitty-gritty stuff so you can understand the importance of not doing some stuff when we're in retrograde. So can you tell us what this actually means and the effects that come along with a Mercury retrograde?
Absolutely. And I can tell you the things that you want to try and do as well. So a lot of people are focused on the what not to do, but there's also the what you should be doing. So I'll go through both of those.
Awesome.
So I'll give you the lowdown. So Mercury itself, he is a trickster planet, and he controls our mind, how we think, how we communicate, how we speak, write, listen, and also how we learn. He's also the planet of technology and transport. So commutes and short-term travel, that's what he deals with. So if you're going on a long-term flight, he's not going to mess with you, so you're fine. Now, everybody has a natal chart. So that is the picture of the sky when you were born, and that'll tell you specifically which house and sign your Mercury is in. So that can tell you a lot about yourself. Just as an example, my Mercury is in Virgo, which means I communicate quickly in a down-to-earth, practical manner, and my thoughts are very organized, and I'm quite prompt in my responses to others. But then it also falls into my 8th house. That's what we talk about in astrology. Houses are the areas of life. So that's the 8th house is of business. So that means I'm really good at research and strategy. And as this house is ruled by Scorpio, it's also a very good one for keeping secrets. So that's perfect for my business. Now, some people are born during a Mercury retrograde. So if they have that in their birth chart, this is going to show up as during the Mercury retrograde times during the year. They're going to be more reflective, and they're actually going to shine during Mercury retrograde. So when everyone's going, oh, everything's falling to pieces, they're going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So if you're one of those people that, doesn't feel the effects of Mercury retrograde, you might already have that in your birth chart. So it just feels more natural to you.
I was born during Mercury retrograde.
Well, there you go. So that means you're more of a reflective person generally. You probably think a little bit differently to others, and you're like a lot of creative people have this placement. So you're probably very creative as well, just because you can think about things from a different perspective, a little bit slower in terms of like really reflective and really taking it all in. So now Mercury, it goes retrograde about 3 or 4 times a year. So a lot of people find out about Mercury retrograde and then it becomes this really big deal in their lives, but we've all been dealing with it our entire lives and we've all turned out fine. So you naturally sort of figure it out, and it's a necessary thing that we need to go through anyway. So I'll just go through a little bit about what it does. So when we talk about retrograde, it just talks about the planet appearing to move backwards in the sky. It doesn't physically change its orbit, so it's still just going around, but its orbit itself is about 4 times shorter than ours, so it only lasts 88 days. So it has 4 years during our 1 year. So what it does is it just does this sort of loopy thing from our vantage point on Earth, and that just causes a bit of a shift in the energy of that planet, and all the planets will go into retrograde at some point. So, but when Mercury does it, it just causes a shift in what it controls, which is, as I said, the mind, how we learn, how we communicate, technology, commutes, that sort of thing. So it's not all bad news or doom and gloom, but some common effects can be delays in your commute. So it's like this slowing down of the energy. So there might be delays, or you might misplace things. That's really common. Technology glitches and crashes, communication breakdowns. Sometimes we can bump into an ex or have dreams about our exes. That's really common. It just sort of causes us to revisit some memories, whether we want to or not. So good things can happen as well because of these things. So for example, you might write a really beautiful blog post and then your computer crashes and you lose it all. That sounds horrible, but then you rewrite it and it is a million times better. So what Mercury's doing is it's making us, I just lost my headphones, sorry. What Mercury is making us do is revise and redo things to bring out a better outcome, basically.
You know, it's so funny. I just have to say this, no joke. Today I was working on a course that I'm creating, right? And I had to have been 75% done with it. And then I come to my computer this morning to find it all gone.
Oh no.
It was all gone. I was like, are you kidding me? Like it wasn't like, you know, it was just the slides, but there was a lot of information and I tried everything and it was like, what happened?
That's Mercury for you. And you basically, what you've done, it's now going to be, when you redo it, it's going to be even better. So it's just making it really clear.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's so funny. Cause I guess I didn't really, like you said, because I was born during a retrograde, and what else did she say? Like 2 retrogrades or something along those lines. And
yeah, there can be other planets that are in retrograde at the time
and
as well.
I never really had like horrible stories when it comes to Mercury retrograde. I've seen other people like have problems with it, but it never really affected me that much. But like when you said like computer crashing, I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yep. What is your, just as a side note, what is your rising sign?
My rising sign is Leo.
Leo, okay. So Leo, that means you.
Oh wait, I'm an Aquarius. Yeah, I'm an Aquarius. That's my sun sign. My ascension is Leo. My moon is Libra.
So with Mercury retrogrades, what we can do is we can look at what element it's in and what sign it's in. So this current one is in Pisces, which means it's going to be more difficult for people who have a rising fire sign, which like you is a Leo. So also for people who have a rising air sign. So myself, I'm a rising Aquarius, that's air. If you've got rising Leo, you're fire. So we're both going to have a little bit of a tougher time. And it doesn't often go into Pisces. Pisces is the most rare. So we will just feel it a little bit more this time round, rather than someone who has an earth sign or a water sign as their rising sign.
Interesting.
So that's a little bit of it. Sometimes you might have a retrograde and you're like, it didn't affect me. And the next one really, hits you one. So it just depends where it shows up in your actual natal chart as well. And what we can then do is, because you're a rising Leo, this one's in Pisces, that means it's going to show up for you in your life area of relationships. So everyone's chart will be almost like triggered in a little bit of a different way. So if yours is in Leo, rising Leo, that means your relationships are going to be a little bit triggered. So there might be communication breakdown with a significant other, or with your close one-on-one relationships or one-on-one chats. So just make sure you're being really careful with what you say and how you interpret what other people say as well.
Sounds about right. So do you have any like funny Mercury retrograde stories to share?
So a couple, mainly from just even this week. So even the 2 weeks prior to a Mercury retrograde is called the shadow period, and the 2 weeks after is the shadow echo. So they're actually sometimes when that energy is the strongest, and it's a little bit complex what that means when we're looking at Mercury moving. It's basically when it goes over the degree that it's going to come back to. from our vantage point, that's when that shadow period starts, rather than when it physically starts moving backwards from our view. So I felt it quite significantly. Just little things like I misplaced my glasses on Monday, which is very hard when you can't see them to find them. And they're quite like a fine frame. So, oh my goodness, I was searching throughout the entire house. I thought my hairdresser had them. I made her check everything, thinking she'd accidentally scooped them up. Like it was just this big kerfuffle. I can't drive without them. I can't read. I can't work. So it was a big deal. And I've never lost my glasses ever. So this was just really bizarre for me. And of course, they were the first place I looked, which was the couch, and they were on the couch. So I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at them that they almost look like they can be camouflaged because they're very thin. Yeah.
They're a thin frame and rose gold. So that kind of, I don't know, just blends into everything. They're not black or anything. So, yes, they just disappeared on me. I was, running around going, I think the Fae have taken them. Something's gone wrong. But we found them. But yes, that's definitely how it can show up, just by misplacing things. Other things like a certain cup goes missing that my daughter has to have, those frustrating types. And then because I'm a rising Aquarius, this is triggering my second house, which is the house of love and money and values. So I've had a few money issues and slowdowns. So for example, I got a one day where I had a big influx of bookings and I was really excited. I was like, woohoo, I've got all these bookings to do. That's really lovely. We're going away next week. So I thought, I've got some spending money. And that day I was running late for something. So again, the delays in your short distance travel. I was running a little bit late and I got a speeding fine. And that was the exact amount for all the bookings that I just got. And I just had to stop and go, okay, all right, I will just take a step back. I don't need to rush anywhere and all of that. So yes. And the other thing, I've had some website issues as well. I actually tried to introduce a new page on my website and I tried 3 times. I'm not kidding, 3 times of doing the entire page, adding photos, text, everything. And 3 times when I went to save it, it said, we can't find the page you wish to save. And I ended up just giving up and thinking, you know what, this is that shadow period hitting me really hard. I need to just wait until this is all over and do it then. So,
I have a story where I had a client, it wasn't this summer, it was the summer before, where it was like Mercury retrograde in August. And she came to me, she was about to close on a house. And the cards were showing me that it wasn't going to happen.
Not a good time.
And she was really excited because she was looking for 2 years, and she's like, we finally found the house that's going to work. And I just as soon as I did the spread, I was like, you cannot shoot the messenger. Please don't shoot the messenger. It's not going to happen. And sure than shit, something came up and it was a shit show. But then, a couple months later, she found another house that worked out better for her. And it's so funny that you said something about your website, because I've been uploading podcast episode because I batch my episodes. And it's taking triple the amount of time to upload these episodes. Usually it's
slowing down.
Yeah, less than a minute or something. And a podcast episode is downloaded and it's taking forever. What is going on? So good to know that it can affect, prior to the actual retrograde.
Yes. So that's the reason for that. It's just, that slowing down of the energy of technology and all that sort of stuff.
And I'm having problems with TikTok.
Not TikTok. Oh no.
Yeah, I know. I love this. That's how I found you, through TikTok.
Yeah.
But yeah, I noticed that it's taking longer too on TikTok. But so just let's talk about the do's and don'ts when it comes to Mercury retrograde. What are the things that we should do and what are the things that we should hold off on?
Definitely. So the best thing to keep in mind with a retrograde is remember the RE for retrograde. So that's a really good tip to remember because it reminds us to read and review and revise and repair and research and reconnect. And there's lots of other RE words that you can put in there. So for example, we want to review and read over things before signing them. So reading the small print or reviewing your social media posts before you post them. Make sure you're rereading your emails before you send them. So as I said, he's a bit of a trickster. So you might write something incorrectly in your email and just totally not look at it. Or something might not output the way you wanted it to and you don't notice because you didn't check. So it's just a time for slowing down your processes and making sure you are reviewing everything. In terms of signing things, so signing contracts, there's a do and a don't. If you want your contract to be binding and you want it to stick, don't sign it during Mercury retrograde. If you want to be able to renegotiate it later and come back to it and have some wiggle room, sign it during Mercury retrograde. So there's ways you can use it to your advantage depending on what you're wanting. Another thing to do is things like revising your finances. So that's something I'm planning to do during this Mercury retrograde because it's triggering my second house of love and money. So I'm going to make sure that I go through my budget and my finances and make sure it's all shipshape and I'm not missing anything. So it's a really good time for me to take that time out. Repairing things. So fixing up something old and giving it a revamp. So instead of buying new things, doing things with what you already have is a really good tip. Research what you're doing before you do it. This is the time where if you post something, for example, you may get a lot of comments saying that's not true or where are your sources, or that sort of energy is going to be out there. So just make sure that you have thoroughly researched things and it's not able to be misconstrued, and that your research is sound. Other good things to do are reconnect. So old friends can make an appearance and we suddenly, want to revive an old relationship. Not always a good time to get back with an ex, although that sort of thoughts and those dreams do pop up, or we may even bump into them in real life as well. But definitely old friends, you might feel that call to sort of just get in touch again, which is really nice. The other thing is to remember. So again, with the RE, remember to leave early for appointments, expect delays, have a backup plan. And instead of making new commitments or starting a new project, focus on reviewing, refreshing, and revamping the old ones. And you can even reapply for a job you didn't get. It's a really great time for doing that sort of thing, or returning to a course of study you didn't finish. That's all the re's that you really need to look at, and just not making any major decisions. So it's just a time for reflection, slowing down. And it works perfectly with the moon phase right now as well. We're in that waning moon phase, so it's just slow down, take your time, it's okay.
I love that RE tip.
Mm-hmm.
That's so right. So it's like read, review, revise. I wrote them all down. Revamp, research, remember. So that's such a good tip.
Yep,
reapply. That's
refresh. There's so many RE words, it works perfectly.
Right. That's a really good tip. So really the don'ts that we want to kind of stay away from is, don't go back to your ex, don't make any rash. I always say don't buy a house during retrograde.
Yeah. So don't make a big decision or a big purchase or anything that could be considered impulsive. Depending where it triggers in your own chart, it could be a time that you sort of become a little bit more gullible and may make some sort of impulse or emotional purchases. To make sure you're stopping, grounding, making sure you're really wanting it before you do. And if you can hold off, just hold off until it's finished, just so that it sticks a bit better as well. But if you want to buy something with the option of returning it easily, great time to do it during Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, just make sure that the return policy is good.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good idea. So really, it also, this will affect different people dependent on your birth chart.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the tip with this one, and this will be good for anyone who is studying astrology or interested in learning or wants to look at their own chart and not pay someone to look at it for them. So what you can do, if you know your rising sign, just a quick astrology tip, each of the signs, so we have 12 zodiac signs, we have 12 zodiac houses. The houses are the area of life. So they all obviously correlate. The first house is Aries, which is the first sign, and so on all the way to the end, which is Pisces. So if you know your rising sign, so let's say your rising sign is like Aquarius, which is mine, then you're going to go 2 signs forward to find the house. So that would be the second house, which is Taurus. So that's kind of a little way. If people are studying astrology, they might understand that a little bit better. So basically Aries, I could go through them all if you wanted to, but it's a big go through. But yes, you can just sort of look forward to which of the signs it's going to be showing up in, and that'll be the area of house.
Okay, so I'm a Leo rising, so that puts me into Libra, yes. Right? Okay, which is also my moon.
Yeah, but it's not really taking into account your moon. This is more just based on your rising sign.
Okay.
So it's not going to take that in as much.
Good to know. So if there is someone listening who is interested in learning more about astrology or tarot, what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give them right now while starting their journey?
So for astrology, I highly recommend looking at a website called planetwatcher.com. That shows you where all the planets are at that particular time, and you can go forward, you can go backwards, you can basically see where they are anytime in history, which is really great. So that's really good for forecasting, and just looking up, it's almost like doing a daily draw with your tarot. So if you pull a card each day and go, how am I feeling today? How is this going to show up today? It's basically doing that. You check in the morning, so you might say, all right, what are the planets doing today? How is this affecting me today? How am I feeling today? Oh, this could be because of A, B, or C. So it's a good way to sort of get to know it. Another thing, there's a really great podcast called The Cosmic Calling by Natalie Wallstein. She's really good at sort of explaining things in a really easy to understand manner. So she's fantastic. I highly recommend that one. And run your own natal chart. So if you can jump onto even some of the free websites, there's Astro Sofa, or you can get astroapp.com if you want. There's a free version there. And, you can look up your own chart or your close friends and family, figure it out on your own, or use a book like The Essential Guide to Practical Astrology by Elliott. That's a really good one. And just start to almost decipher it yourself and see how that resonates with you or with your friends and family. And you'll start to build almost like a catalogue of patterns in your mind, similar to when we do tarot readings. You might pull a card and go, oh, I've had this be X, Y, and Z before, and now I'm seeing it again. So that's almost a new meaning for me intuitively. So it's just bringing a little catalogue into your brain about things.
Good to know. And guys, all of this information will be in the show notes for you. So definitely be sure to check out the show notes, because I love when people give like book recommendations and stuff like that, because I start looking at them. But so let's quickly talk about tarot, because first, I love tarot, and I love hearing other tarot readers and what they do as far as building their relationship with the form of divination. So what are 3 pieces of advice for any beginner tarot reader? Okay, so my first tip is to make sure you sleep with your deck when you buy it. And you can do this at any point as well if you feel like you need to reconnect with that deck's energy. So I make sure I do that as soon as I buy it, basically, to just sort of bond with it. I don't know how it works. It is absolutely magic because it just works. Because I've tried reading with a deck before, and I just sit there and go, I don't know why this isn't working for me. I can't. It's like I can't understand anything. And then I've had my mentor go, did you sleep with it? So I don't, no, all right, do it. And then suddenly it's fine. So that's a number 1 tip. Sleep with it under your pillow. The other ones, make sure you are cleansing it as well. I like to place it on just a little disc of selenite. That's a really great, easy way to just sort of leave it there. Or I've got a box with a few decks in it, and I just have a big bar of selenite in there. And a few other crystals that are good for intuition and that sort of thing. That just helps infuse the energy into the deck and keeps it clean, but doesn't take away the energy that you might have bonded with it over. So it's not taking away all the energy like a sage would. It is just taking away the excess or the build-up or the connection with any clients that you've been reading with.
So it just helps to start fresh with each person or with each draw.
Yeah. You know what I do too? And I started doing, did you see the Light Seers Tarot?
I've seen it. I haven't got it.
Oh my gosh. I just got it. I didn't need it, but I had to have it.
Do we ever need more?
Yeah. But I was watching the artist for a while on Instagram, and then it was like, it was supposed to come out last January and it didn't. And then it finally was available on Amazon. So I had to have it. And the imagery on these cards is unbelievable. But what I started to do, this is the first time I ever did it, guys, was obviously I cleansed and charged the deck first, but then I interviewed the deck.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I haven't done that with all my decks, only one of them, but it is a very useful way to get to know it. Yeah,
because it's funny when you really establish, because guys, everything is energy. So we have to remember that. This is not like, I'm sure I look like a weirdo interviewing a deck, but it really establishes the relationship between you and that deck. Mm-hmm. Because there are decks, I've had people say like, they have decks where they don't read reversals.
I have that.
Yeah.
And I figured that out. So I have, I work with the Shadowscapes deck. I work with the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, and I work with the Dark Mansion Tarot. The Dark Mansion, I just cannot read reversals with it. It didn't come up in a deck interview, although I'm sure it could if you started that way. But I just picked it up and it was like an intuitive just knowing, no, I'm not reading reversals with this one. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't want to be worked that way. Whereas the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's funny, depending on the spread, it'll just switch it up or it'll change. And the Shadowscapes I do reversals with as well. So it's just different on each deck.
Right. It doesn't work. Like it's for me, that never happened with a deck before where it just reversals don't work. But when someone else said like, I can't do it with this deck, it was the, what deck? It's the Wild Unknown, she was saying. Like, she cannot read reversals with it. And I was like, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, thank you so much for all of this information and kind of dumbing down Mercury retrograde so people aren't so afraid of it. Guys.
Yeah, it's not to be afraid of. It's useful. We need that time to reflect and slow down and, go over things that we might have, rushed past.
Yeah. And if you aren't going to slow down, it's going to slow down for you. It's going to make you slow down. So
the more we fight it, everything with astrology, the more you fight it, the harder it hits.
Exactly. Hana, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, check out her information below in the show notes. All of the information on the books and all the websites and the podcast will be in the show notes as well. Thank you again for coming on, Hana.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye, guys.